Welcome back to the shop. VG30 turbo, nothing special. Doing a basically, somebody rebuilt it once already, so we're putting it back together. I think it was 30 mil over, I want to say. All the work had already been done. I guess somebody popped a head gasket with very low miles on it, so we're on the tail end of putting it back together. But we got a treat. Isky cams. These are 270 grind. So when you get one of these, they come with this little jewel of assembly lube. This is a good idea, especially for the high pressure sections. So where your tappets are going to ride here on the lobes, that's where it's a very vital thing to do. Otherwise, I like to use, personally, everybody has their own choice, Lubriplate assembly lube. You can get this at Napa. It's usually pretty cheap. Amazon, I think, also sells it. We've got our backplate bolt, backplates themselves. You also want to make sure all this is nice and clean. You got a new seal for this front end. It's a good idea if you're really going to be pushing this with bigger cams to get some bigger valve spring or heavier valve springs. I think Schneider's usually one of the better bang for the buck options. They're sticking with a stock setup for now, just for simplicity. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. He's not planning on pushing this engine hard with heavy boost or anything. So stock springs, as long as he keeps it decent revs, shouldn't be a big deal. So, wish I had a harness for holding this thing on to me, but see about getting you set up so that way I can show you, start to put it together. So I'm going to take the cam, come with all kinds of nice original machining lube on there. So a good rule that I usually go through, take a quick blast of brake clean, zip through it, just give it a quick wipe down, because we're going to be putting our own lube on there anyway. So that way nothing's counteracting each other, nothing's interfering with each other. It's also good to inspect it, make sure there's no burrs or any kind of funk on there. If you're using blue rags, or especially the red cloth rags, it's a good idea to be mindful and look for any kind of mess that likes to fluff off. I don't know if you can tell, but usually if these rags catch on a burr, it'll leave residue behind. So just be mindful of that, keep an eye out. These blue rags usually aren't too bad for that, but it's still good to look for. So this is going to be what's considered the right side head. If you're sitting from behind the engine is how they consider it, which is the non-distributor side. So the easiest way I found to do this is to slip it in carefully. Once you get it to about here, I'll take and lube up all the journals and everything, get it all nice and assembly lube on there. Get it to where it needs to be, put the nut on the end, and then I'll take the Isky super lube on there and put it on all the lobes. So that way, when it breaks in with the new lifters, everything breaks in like it's supposed to and gets all nice and hunky-dory with each other. Just nice and careful and easy, not a rush, not anything crazy. Don't want to damage anything. So, here's our lube. This stuff. There we go, the nice gloop on there here. And it is petroleum based, so it's going to be kind of oily like that. I don't know if you can see at the beginning. Just be very careful. Alright. I like to spin it as I put it into its home, so that way that lubrication gets everywhere. Now, clean up a mess. This is where we'll take our rear bolt. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. I'll have to look up the specs on this one. I think it's kind of high. This is going to get torqued down to actually set any kind of axial play and get it exactly where it's supposed to be. But I'm just going to get started by hand for now. So that way, it's held in place. The easiest way I found to do that, get it torqued down, that is. One of these nice little plastic whoop-de-doo tools. And it's kind of a faux pas, some people frown on it, but it's plastic. It's okay. But I'll take this and line it up with one of the one of the cam lobes here and lock it in place. Since we're going to be going this way, it's going to be coming down. So I usually like this boss right here. Tuck this down in there, cam lobe comes up on it, locks it in place. So I'm going to look up the torque spec on this, get it locked down, and come right back to you. So we're going to be torquing this 62 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set. Roll on over. 62.5. Let's do one more check just to make sure. Alright. Now, one thing to make sure of, absolutely, especially if you get aftermarket cams from somebody else or use somebody else's as cores, make sure this rotates like it's supposed to in here, as well as the in and out play, the axial play. There is a spec for it, I don't know off the top of my head, but it should be minimum. You don't want this thing moving around anywhere it's not supposed to. But I have seen and had cases where somebody got cams from somebody else and put them in a set of heads that's entirely different. Once they torqued that down, this was locked up because the clearance on that washer was slightly different. Just a little word of warning. So next up, the delightful Isky gray lube. So coat this on the lobes themselves, so that way when they break in with the lifters, everybody's all nice and happy. So just go a little hog wild with that just to get it everywhere. Make a huge mess with it, you know, usual. This is also another example to consider as to why you want to change your oil just a little while after putting an engine together or putting cams together, or any kind of major work like this is a good idea. So that way all the break-in material, all the, you know, this one's got new rings in it, so all the new ring material that's get broken in with the new hone job that's been done, all those things, so that way all that material and detritus and nonsense that comes out with it gets changed out with the oil. It's also, again, why you want to make sure you do your oil changes warm for the exact same reason. So that way any kind of mess that you wind up shuffling off into that oil that came off of these parts breaking into each other, which is normal, when you do that oil change warm, all that mess is stratified in the oil. It's actually suspended in the oil. And go ahead, change it out, everything flushes out with it, which is nice. Cam is installed, back bolt is torqued, so now all that's left, and I'll wrap this up elsewhere, get this back cover RTV attached, and I'll go ahead and get the rocker assemblies bolted down, which will do that nice even fashion to get it nice and even, nice and well done. So hopefully this helps somebody out and give you some good information to help out with doing these kind of things. Enjoy. This is for anybody doing cam upgrades or working with their lifter assembly they want to work on. So here's the lifter assembly for this VG30. If this compresses, this little pintle right here compresses, that's an issue. That's usually a case where you got a lifter problem. I'll show you just a second. Let me get this tossed on here. Also, since I'm doing this cam upgrade on this VG30, I've also got the break-in lube on the lifters here. So that way everybody wears in like they're supposed to. The trick with this is you can rock it because it's got those dowel pins on it. Now, if you have any question as to whether or not you have a failed lifter, if you're getting noise, things like that, what you can do is just press, like you're pushing a button on each of these small caps of the lifters, and if it compresses, that's a very good indication that's your lifter issue. Which, same thing, evenly unbolt this, remove it, flip it upside down, pull the lifter out, swap it out with a replacement, or whatever your chosen ramification is. Whatever your chosen repair is. So that way, you have a good solid rocker system. Now, clean these up just a little bit. I'm going to need to put some assembly lube on these as I go along. One last wipe down before I continue. There we go. Everybody's nice and clean and prepped to go together. my assembly lid of choice. I like to put a little bit on top of the valve stem here. Just give a little bit of extra protection on that first start. Or if it's, you know, cranking for a while, building up oil pressure or anything like that. Also right on top of the tips of the lifters themselves for the exact same reason. Now, both of these rocker shaft assemblies are individual, and you can tell you got these cutouts here, and they match up with the pairs of head bolts on this side. So this is always the most pain in the butt part. They slide back and forth, and they like to get caught and jumbled up. Awkward. Let's see here. This one's got just the 1-2 cuts, so that way we know it goes up top. Bam. Ta-da. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and show this, but basically when you tighten this down, there is a pattern in the manual, Haynes manual, whatever service manual you decide to use. Generally it's going to be starting from the center and working your way out in a bit of a pattern. You want to bolt these down evenly and smoothly, essentially. So that way you don't wind up putting anything into any sort of a bind or bend any of these rocker shaft assemblies or any kind of issues like that. So take your time, be careful, be mindful, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. So just a word of warning. But go through and get these all torqued down and be all set.